Come on. There we go. Okay, that's all good. Oops. Forgot to pop out the chat so I can see it. Live chat, please. Thank you. All right, and I think we're good, and there we go. Hope you folks are doing well this morning. Let's see. We got people in the chat. Grim JD, some dude on YouTube, Nick Meredith, RV Dammit, John Ashley Smith, Bubba Doom, Feisty Crabman, Robert Dean, Jared N. Let's see here. A. Giger. Hello from Quebec City, looking at my old Battletech figurines. Nice. Joseph Brogan, morning. Folks saying hello from Coventry, Germany, Williamsport, North Carolina. People talking about sun. It's sunny here too, which is nice because yesterday was just gray all day. Spring skipping into summer, Tennessee. Yep, there, I gotta get that. Jonesboro, Illinois. Nice warm Washington, D.C. How you doing? Oshawa, Nicaragua, Florida, Saskatchewan, Los Angeles. Good morning, minions. Another day for indoor priming. Yeah, you'll get that. Jackson, Florida, West Virginia, Quebec, St. Paul, Sweden, Denmark, Newfoundland. Excited to get some Middle-earth strategy game battles in later today. Nice. Morning from Virginia again. Good morning from rainy Germany, California, Clearwater, Florida, Drizzly, Scotland, Newcastle, Alexandria, Tennessee, painting some Iron Brigade in honor of you Wisconsin people. Iron Brigade, I'm not familiar with that. But it's nice for you to, in honor of Wisconsin people. Sure, why not? Germany, Galesburg, Illinois, Labrador. Morning from the Mitten. I should build, but it feels like a video game day. Mental health is an important thing. And there's times when you're like, I should do this. For the last 2.5 weeks, I've been doing nothing but layout for the new game. And I'm happy to report that sometime shortly after lunch on Thursday, it was sent off to the printer. So that's good. It was a lot of work. So, yeah, I haven't done much of anything other than that. So, yeah, it was like there's a part of me that was like, oh, I should play a video game. And then I was like, well, I built some models instead because I enjoyed that too. And I had some podcasts to listen to. So why not? I can't listen to podcasts while playing a video game. I just can't. I don't know why. It's supposed to hit 80s in Chicagoland. Wow. I don't think it's supposed to get nearly that warm here. I think it's supposed to get almost to 70. That's pretty nice. Probably open the windows, maybe. Cats like that. Learning Star Wars Armada and cataloging paint today. Nice. Morning from Colorado. You must have sent your gloomy day this way. Perfect day for painting. Yeah, it was a pretty good day for hobby, that's for sure. Good day from Bristol, UK. Thanks for all the silly putty advice during the last stream. Dark green cloaks on my yellow Iandon Rangers would have been terrifying without it. Yeah, silly putty is a spectacular masking material, specifically for airbrush. Yeah, it works really, really well. Just, I would never probably leave it on for super long, like a couple of days or like a week, but for like during the session, I need to airbrush this cloak and not get airbrush all over the rest of the model. Put it on there, spray, peel away. It works out great. Hi again from the nation of Dave. Hello. Video game day here as well, indeed. Are you happy with the layout? I am. Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping you folks enjoy it. But yeah, the new game should be coming out. If everything works out right, which I hopefully it will, not only will it come out on the 2nd of June, but we very well possibly may have printed copies at TMX for people to buy. Can you give us details on the new game yet? It is The let's see, what are the approved words we've said? Near future. So it's not fantasy, it's not sci-fi, it's like modern but move forward a bit. So near future. It is asymmetrical. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Not asynchronous, or amphibious. Yeah, asymmetrical meaning your size, the size of your force versus the force you're going up against will not be equal. In power, hopefully they should be equal. They should be balanced that way. But you will have a certain amount of models, and generally you'll be fighting against, in many situations, one model. So and then it's solo and co-op, but there's also a versus mode, skirmish, that kind of jazz. So we're not doing it the same size. I mean, the scale is the same, but in the past, our last 2 games have been on basically kill team boards. This one you can play. It's the suggested size is a little closer to 3x3, but. Malev says cuties only in the chat. Indeed. I'll have to leave. Iron Brigade was the famous brigade in the American Civil War, composed of Michigan, Indiana, and Wisconsin regiments. Oh, well, there you go. I did not know that. The class that I was in school, going all the way through from kindergarten to high school, we didn't barely learn anything about the Civil War because the curriculum changed. 8th grade history ends when we were going through school. 8th grade history, we were just before the Civil War, and then over the summer they changed the curriculum citywide, and then when we got to freshman year, U.S. history started directly after the Civil War. So the class before us and the class after us, they got taught the Civil War. We were the one class of 89, that somehow, when they changed the curriculum, they didn't realize that the class of 89 was not going to get to learn about the Civil War. So I know very little about the Civil War because we didn't learn about it in school because they changed the curriculum over the summer between my 8th grade and high school beginning. Yeah. So I don't know a ton about it, so I apologize. Finished a couple of Gundam artifact kits yesterday. Had it for about a month. Nice. Greetings from an early Los Angeles. Yeah, I suppose so. It's like 7 o'clock in the morning there. First time live. I usually watch this later because I'm not a morning person. I am not either, so I understand that. Good morning from Dearborn, Michigan. Thanks again for all you do. Well, I appreciate that, Trent. Thank you very much. I mostly like retro video games, but Diablo 4 is tempting. Why isn't that game on an RPG or tabletop game? It's so close. I was a big fan of Diablo back in the day. I don't see myself getting the new version. I honestly... and this is going to make me sound like a dork or something, but I kind of don't want... once they get rid of Bobby, what's his name there? The CEO, Bobby Kotick or whatever. If they get rid of him, then I could see myself maybe buying an Activision Blizzard game again. But right now, I'm just not feeling like supporting the company, personally. A Mad Max game? No, it's not an apocalyptic game. World's first amphibious board game. I mean, I probably have that out there. A near future Ogre. It's not like tank battles, but Ogre is definitely an asymmetrical game. If you've ever heard of Ogre or played Ogre, it's a pretty old game from Steve Jackson Games where one player has a force of hover tanks and missile launcher emplacements and dudes in power armor and all this stuff, and you play it on a small board. And they're not miniatures per se; they're more like little cardboard chits originally. The new current version, which I think is 6th edition, doesn't have miniatures, but it does have cardboard cutouts, which you put together, and they're actually 3-dimensional. They're pretty cool. But in Ogre, it is my force versus your one giant tank. It's kind of like that, but it's not vehicles; it's people, and it's you'll understand it when you see it. Sounds like it's a good challenge. Yeah, I think it should be, and it's also it's designed to be played as a campaign, narrative kind of thing and whatnot. It's not going to have the same kind of branching thing that Space Station Zero has, where you do this mission and then you either roll or choose. Do you want to go into, room 2 or 3 or 4 or that kind of thing? It doesn't have that kind of branching thing. It's a little bit more random, but it still has a decent amount of stuff you can do as far as length of campaign. Yeah. Painting so many new Cadian shock troopers, so many tiny details that they are awesome little models, but the word little is there. And it is, I'm going to have to paint those guys up because that's going to be one of the combat patrols that I'm going to be working on. I've already built the armored sentinel. I've built the 2 gun emplacements, and I've started building, just before I started getting to lay out real hard for the game, I started building some of the command squad. But I'm going to have to build 20 of those little dudes, you know, not the command squad, but the regular guys soon, and then paint them eventually. And yeah, that's going to be a bunch. Ogre isn't old. I think it came out in the late 70s, maybe early 80s. It's kind of old. I'm old. I came out in the early 70s. Good morning from Farmington, Missouri. How you doing? Ordered World Eaters Patrol box. Super stoked. Nice. Rolla, Missouri. Cheated by bureaucratic oversight. The humanity. Indeed. Indeed. Similar reasoning I have with the Wizards of the Coast and the Pinkertons issue. Won't buy until they apologize, etc. Sure, sure. Because that would mean I'm old. I get you. Sure, yeah. Ooh, chalupa cabra. Tasty. Happy to catch you live for the first time. I'm amidst a mech scratch building for Steel Rifts in gloomy Omaha, Nebraska. Well, that's fun. Nice. Ogre, the game that breaks your mailman's back, at least the Kickstarter edition. I did the Kickstarter edition back in the day, and I ordered it. I think it was 2011 when that thing eventually went, but I didn't get it until, I don't think we finally got our Kickstarter edition until 2013 or 2014. I think it was 2014. And I was working at this company, and I was working in like a bit of a cubicle farm, and I was gone doing something, going to the bathroom, whatever. I came back to my cubicle, and there was this box that was blocking the door to my cubicle. And I could see it said Steve Jackson Games on it. I'm like, oh my God, my Ogre stuff finally got here. And I went to pick it up, and I nearly threw my back out. That box was, I believe, I looked at the invoice thingy or whatever in there, the shipping information. That box was like nearly 28 pounds. It was just gross. I got it home, and I couldn't figure out where to put it. Like, I was like, oh, I know where I'll put it. I'll put it underneath the guest bed upstairs in the guest room. And it doesn't fit. Well, now we've gotten rid of that guest bed anyway. But yeah, at the time, I could not get it. It's a very big box. Very, very, very big box. Building the new Seraphon box. Nice. Good morning from West Texas. Finishing painting miniatures for my son's Dead by Daylight board game. Oh, neat. Just got back into Marvel Crisis Protocol yesterday with my wife. Wargaming Summer. Nice. Nice. Started paying more attention to potential new releases of Epic 40K. Love Epic scale. Small, paint small to game big. I've never been a big fan of that scale. Like, I guess for Battletech, when I played that back in the day, I was fine with the scale at that point. And I like Steel Rift, which is also kind of roughly that scale. But for some reason, I don't want to paint a lot of troops that size. I've never been interested in painting tiny, tiny, tiny little troops. I think that's part of my issue there. Spent the morning reporting Gallifall listings at 300% markup. Let's see if the listings actually go down. Looking forward to the new game. Oh, yeah. Have you heard about the disaster with Mythic Games? Real miffed about the contribution deal regarding Siege 6 Kickstarter. This is probably going to be my last Kickstarter I support with them. I don't think I know who Mythic Games is, and I don't know what Siege 6 is. Sorry about that. Do I know? Did Mythic Games do Reichbusters? That's the only thing I can think of that I know from them. Or did they do the Batman stuff? Or both? I'm sorry. Yeah, I haven't heard that news. Sorry. It's everyone's favorite model from the new 40K box. Despite the middling reception, I'm pretty partial to the Barb Gaunts, the artillery boys. Those guys are kind of cool. Yeah, yeah. I think that probably for me, I'd have to go back and look real hard, but I think that probably I'm most interested to some degree in I think they're called the Infernus squad, which are basically the Primaris guys with the flamethrowers. I think those guys are pretty cool. Well, and the big like Redemptor Dreadnought with no arms, that guy's kind of cool too. Morning from Los Angeles. How do you prevent airbrush priming from not chipping? I have tried washing the model, but it still chips using Vallejo and Pro Acryl primers. Any suggestions? Welcome. I guess I've never had that issue. I do have a tendency to let my airbrush paint cure or primer. So I spray and then I let it cure for like at least overnight. I think that if you prime and then immediately start trying to paint, it doesn't give enough time for the paint to properly cure. So if you're doing that and it's still chipping, then I'm not sure. I don't know, because I have, like I said, I almost never have that problem. Every once in a great while, if I don't let it sit as long as I probably ought to, and I really try to flood some area with a lot of wash, and then I start moving it around, there have been times where I've knocked off a little bit of primer. And this is generally the Pro Acryl. I haven't used the Vallejo stuff in a long, long time. But yeah, that's the best. I mean, the other option is if you got the option and if you know that you maybe paint in a very rough style with like lots of really rough dry brushing or something like that, you may want to try just using a rattle can as like your base, like black color, and then, airbrush prime over the top of it maybe later, because the airbrush stuff it's real hard to get off sometimes. But yeah, that's otherwise I haven't bumped into that problem nearly too much. GW finally showed off commended entries from Golden Demon. Well, that's good. I think that's a nice thing to do. I mean, they have a Golden Demon website that they haven't updated in years. They should probably, that's where that stuff should end up, in my opinion. Did you ever play the D&D miniature combat game Chainmail? It came out around 3rd edition in the early 2000s. I never did. No, I saw it and I was interested, but I never played it. My internet provider is down across the city. Well, that's no fun. We're watching on mobile and it's struggling. Yeah, I bet so. If everybody in the city's down, I bet they're all using the internet. Yeah. Hello from Poland. Uncle Adam, have you seen a little black gem that is Veritwood, a folk horror 4-model skirmish game? I don't know. I haven't played it or anything. I've seen it up on Wargame Vault. And I looked a little bit at the listing and stuff like that, but I know there's a video. I should watch the video because I know that Ash did a video about it, and I should watch it. But I am aware of it. Yeah. Opinion on the new big narrative Kill Team box set. Don't recall seeing much terrain featured. There's no terrain in that box. Yeah, no, the Ashes of Faith. It's very cool. Just booked the Pet Palace for the pups in prep for TMX. That's a lot of fun to say, is what that is, but that's very cool. Yeah, I like that concept of the big narrative box. Now, that all being said, hopefully they also sell those folks separately as well, because like everything in that box is an older sculpt, like a sculpt that's already available, except for the folks that are the like inquisitorial, people. All that chaos stuff is stuff you can get currently. There's some, I think there's some Sisters of Silence in there. There's some Tempestus Scions in there. But those models that are available in there, that are currently just available in that box, those guys are pretty cool. And probably, hopefully, like they've been doing with all their other box sets, that like in 3 months, when the next box set comes out, they'll be like, oh yeah, if you want to buy just these forces, you'll be able to do that. And so hopefully they'll put those guys out in another 3 months as well for people who don't want all of that stuff. But if you're looking for all that stuff and want to play a narrative type game, it's a kind of a cool concept. It's interesting that they're like, well, what if we tried making a box that didn't have terrain in it? I think that's kind of cool. But even beyond that, just those inquisitorial models, they're very interesting to me. They're up my street, as they would say. Working on Into the Dark terrain and Dark Angels with airbrush and my portable hood. Been fun. Nice. Good afternoon from sunny Worcester. Happy to catch my first live stream while I work on a Warlord Titan for a game of Adeptus Titanicus tomorrow. Nice. We'll have a good time with that. Watching live and intending to go out to the hobby shed to paint Burrows and Badgers mini, but one of our cats has taken up residence on my lap. Yeah, no, that's true. If a cat sits on your lap, you can't get up. It's Chisel and Foam. I'm shingling the mud hut buildings I made for a craft show next weekend. Nice. How you doing? Good to see you. Reichbusters, Joan of Arc, and Mythic Battles Pantheon, really crummy projects. I was interested in Reichbusters initially. Well, not for the Kickstarter. I was at Gen Con and they had a booth there, Mythic did, and they had some copies of Reichbusters left. And so I was interested to some degree, and I was like, oh, okay, well, like what's in the box? And because if you looked at the box and you turned it around and looked in the back, there were no pictures of what was in the box. Now, I'm assuming it's because these boxes were originally designed for Kickstarter. So you don't pick up the box and look at the back at Kickstarter. On Kickstarter, it shows you, here's all the models and blah, blah, and you're like, cool. Whereas that pick up the box, flip it over and look at the back and see what's inside, that's what you do at a store. And these weren't originally designed for stores. But the problem is this guy really wanted me to buy this box because it had all kinds of cool models in it, but I couldn't see them. And they didn't have them out and all that kind of stuff. And so I was just kind of like, eh. And so then he like pulls out his phone. He's like trying to find the Kickstarter on his phone. He's like, oh, I can show you. I'm like, it's fine. I mean, there's nothing shady about that or anything. It's just, it's one of those things where maybe in the future they might plan on putting the stuff on the back just in case they do need to eventually go to retail. But I don't think I've ever bought anything from Mythic, frankly. Painting epic scale infantry is a lot easier than people realize because of the size that it was much that to paint. True. I just don't like, I don't like little tiny, I don't know. I used to play Flames of War, and you'd have the little tiny, admittedly they weren't 6mm size, they were like 15mm size, but still. I always wanted to have as many tanks and as few infantry as possible in my game. Hello from sunny 70 degrees New York. Spring must be here for real this time. Well, one could hope. Infernus squads with those gas mask heads you used on your Grimdark Future Firefight Marines would look pretty cool. That's true. That's a good point. Now, those models, though, from what I've been hearing, those models are pretty much push fit. So at least the ones that are in the box. The ones that are in the box of whatever it's called, the Leviathan. So it would be a little bit harder, I would think, to cut. Like, with normal Primaris models, you can just, glue the head in there because you put in whatever head you want. But I think with push fit, it might not work as easily. So I'd have to get in there and grind some stuff out, which wouldn't be the end of the world, but I could, But I'm assuming, I have to assume that they're going to release probably an Infernus box set down the road, which will not be push fit, but, How many people out there make whole 40k armies using non-GW minis? I am building an Imperial Guard army, but I'm using Union army models for all the infantry and weapon crews. I mean, people do it, obviously not people who play in tournaments and different types of events like that too frequently, because there's usually restrictions on that kind of stuff. But you play with your friends and stuff like that, yeah, you can build whatever kind of models you want. Why don't tabletop war games use a grid? As a TTRPG player, a grid seems so much easier than having to bust out a ruler every turn. Some do. The one that I can think of off the top of my head that does is called Dead Zone from Mantic. They use a grid, but most games don't because of the fact that you may not necessarily be playing on a regular board. You may, like, the gold standard for playing a miniatures game is playing on a board that you built, with like little variations and like a creek running through it, if not real water, probably, although it could be. But so you want it to look a little bit more like you're playing on a diorama as opposed to playing on a cardboard board that's got a grid and like some artwork printed on it and stuff like that. Now, that being said, games like Kill Team, which come with a printed cardboard board, they could go down that road, but Games Workshop seems to be kind of against the idea. They want you to use a ruler, or a tape measure. And honestly, I prefer that. As soon as a game gets gridded, I feel like it is more board gamey and less miniature game. You know what I mean? I think it's just a preference thing, to be honest. Good morning from Boston. Gorgeous day. Well, that's good to hear. Matte varnish over your primer if you want it to hold up to rough painting and still have tooth. It's a good idea. That's a good idea. I could see that. Yeah. If you got the time to throw some matte primer over the top. Or, yeah, matte varnish, sorry. Let's see here. Loading up with oatmeal, caffeine, and nicotine. It's a balanced diet, sure. And then I'm painting. No adult kids, no grandbaby, no distractions. Nice. Hello from the UK. You're the creator that got me into wargaming. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Absolutely. How would you start evangelizing games like Space Station Zero to groups that only play GW stuff? Generally, the way that I tell people to try becoming a gaming advocate in some fashion is to start out with skirmish games, which Space Station Zero fits the bill, and then build like what needs to be built, two forces in this situation. Space Station Zero, for example, you would need 2 crews if you're going to be playing a co-op game. And then you would also, of course, need the enemies, which you don't need that many enemies, but you can use whatever, honestly. But yeah, so you do something like that, and then you produce that stuff, and, then you talk to a friend who, let's say, just plays GW stuff, and you go, do you want to try this? I've got everything I need. You need. You don't need to bring anything. I mean, I have dice and rulers and all that kind of stuff, and then just run them through and play a game. And then they're short, so you could even play a couple because again, it's a campaign kind of mission, and you could do that fun thing in between missions, the post game process where you're like, okay, well, this guy did this, and so therefore this happened, and this guy got hurt, and that kind of thing, and it may not take. There are some people who just want to play Warhammer and that's it, and that's fine. But if you keep at it, eventually you might get somebody who's like, this is cool. Like I like this because it's maybe a little bit like role playing game, a little bit, but not like, video game role playing game where you're just like upping your stats and stuff like that, as opposed to having to talk to the to the tavern owner kind of thing and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it takes a bit of work, admittedly. We're talking about an entrenched enemy here, and I don't really think that they're enemies. I enjoy GW games myself. I am working on several combat patrols right now, so for me, combat patrols is so cool, and I'm so glad they're heading back in that direction, is because it's very nostalgic for me. It's where I started really with Games Workshop in general, and just like. Like I said, I played some war games when I was a kid. I played some in middle school. I played some BattleTech. I played a little bit in college. I played Car Wars from Steve Jackson Games in college. But honestly, like I was a little bit more into RPGs back then. We played Rollmaster in college. We played Shadowrun in college. That kind of stuff. In grade school, I was playing D&D a little bit. So yeah, for me, like getting into what are generally known as tabletop war games was getting into initially, like I said, there was BattleTech, and then there was some Space Hulk in the early 90s when I was in college. But then when it was time to actually start playing like a normal, war game, my first normal war game was Combat Patrol 5th edition 40K. So that's why there's that nostalgia there for me, for sure. And to some degree for Sam as well, because Sam, that's when I first met Sam. We were playing Combat Patrol, and we would get together and play Combat Patrol at his brother's house. We'd play in the garage on Sundays and stuff like that. And so, yeah, we're both looking forward to it. Ferretwood is awesome, cheap, and a kit basher's dream. I like stuff like that. I'll give you that. Let's see here. Do you have a process for working on your hobby backlog? Very frequently, these days, it's a little bit more of not so much even backlog. It's just like, what do I need to get done next for what? I need to get done certain things for certain projects. Like I do sponsored things for time to time on the channel. So I have to get those done at a certain time so I can film the videos. Knowing that I have to get things done, or I want to get things done for a new game that's coming out, or, like I'm currently working on some models for our next game. As well as working on some Combat Patrol stuff that I want to get done, although I'm mostly working on the Combat Patrol stuff on Twitch. I stream on Twitch, in case you're wondering, I stream on Twitch on Monday nights from 7 p.m. Central until 10 p.m. Central. That would be a long stream otherwise. And then on Friday mornings, I'm 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. And lately, I've been working on Death Watch. So those guys have been fun. A Death Watch Combat Patrol box. But yeah, so for me, because I have like deliverables and things I got to get done, it's never difficult for me to go, I don't know what to work on next, because I'm always like, I got to work on 6 things at once. But yeah, I've not been in a situation where I've been like, well, what should I work on next? I've got generally things planned out. Morning from Oversleeping, Ontario. How you doing? What do you think of the Victrix miniatures and historical wargaming? I've heard of Victrix. I don't think I've ever built or bought anything from them particularly. I'm not super crazy into historicals. It's just I got into, probably about 10 years ago almost, I got into Flames of War for a little while. And it didn't, yeah, we did it for maybe a year or so. Generally, the guys that I was playing with, it was a lot more fun to set up the little village that we were going to have our fight in. I had one friend, and I think I've told this story before, who's really good at making like homemade bocage. It was really good looking stuff. And so we would set up, and he would make the roads too. And then I had a lot of the buildings and all that kind of stuff. And we would set up these big, huge, 4x6 like villages. And, okay, well, this is where the church is, and this is where the farm is, and this is where these guys go, and all that kind of stuff. And then we would have to sit there and like reread the rules to make, because we'd been, 3 months since we'd played last. We weren't playing a lot. And eventually the guys that I was playing with kind of were just like, I sold my stuff. And then we just didn't play anymore. So, but yeah, I'm still interested in Conflict 47, which is not exactly historical, since there's like werewolves and laser tanks in it. But I am more interested in that type of gaming than I am straight up historicals personally. Love Battletech since I was a teenager, but it is really complicated getting back into it. Tons of boxes and books, but I loved it once I played it. Well, that's good. Just listening till now. Is the new Snarling Badger game going to be soloable? Yep. Yeah, it'll be solo playable, co-op playable. You can also play it versus, so you'll have all 3 different options. Probably, well, not every game we make going forward will be soloable. Every bigger game that we make probably will be soloable. We have plans to release a little kind of mini game, a little micro game, this late fall, early winter. We're planning on starting to make, this is the plan at least. We don't know, we're probably going to be able to make this happen. But our plan is every winter / fall/winter, we're going to start putting out a little zine, which will be PDF only. You can print it if you want to, but you don't have to. It'll be inexpensive. It'll be, available as well through the same place that we sell our other stuff, but there won't be a print version. And in that little zine every year, there will be a little tiny game, which probably will only be versus, because then we don't have to write like the AI of like, well, when this happens, then your opponent does this and that kind of stuff. Like a game that doesn't have single player in computer games is slightly easier just because then you don't have to write the AI to make, a useful opponent. So those games, when we do those, and you'll find out more about those later on this year, that'll probably be versus only. But our normal bigger games that'll come out in, usually the spring or June or whatever, those will generally have solo and co-op built into it, because just a lot of people don't have people to play with, or they want to play the game a bunch themselves before they try to get other people to play. So it's nice to be able to play it by yourself so that you can get the hang of the rules, and then, that kind of thing. So good morning from Stoughton, here on vacation for a week. Nice. Let's see here. I am way behind. Good afternoon from Copenhagen. Fun to catch you live for the first time. Well, absolutely, Christian. Thanks for all your good tips. You've really helped me getting into the hobby recently. Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Painting some World War I French while listening. Nice. Mythic is very good at promoting the next game after this one. Gotcha. I swear if they take away my 6 Lehman Rust army, I'm going to be mad. I don't know. Like, I don't have a great gauge for vehicles in this game, the new version of 40K. Like, they have a tendency as the editions move on, like there are editions that are all about vehicles, and the next edition, nobody uses vehicles, and they keep changing the meta. And I don't know what it's supposed to be like for this edition. That I haven't heard. I get the point of push fit models, but boy, do I hate them. If all the models were like that, it would be a real bummer. But if like a box of like, especially like a launch box, a starter box, whatever you want to call it, if those are push fit, that doesn't bother me a ton. After seeing this new kill team box in the Imperial Agents boarding patrol set, do you think we will see a set that includes a Gellerpox kill team? Maybe. I know there was a box that had, the Imperial Agents one that had the bunch of the guys that were from the Rogue Trader kill team box, right? The good guys, the Far Striders, whatever. Euclidean Far Striders, is that what they were called? Because they were in that box, weren't they? Yeah, I don't know about the Gellerpox, though. I thought you could buy them separately, but maybe I'm thinking of something else. I really like bolt action, great rules, and easy to paint. True. $1 million idea, a type of sharpener to fix brush tips that have curled. I generally don't have that problem. And I think it's maybe because I have a tendency to spin my brush. Not like during a stroke, but I paint, I spin. I just kind of gotten into this habit of constantly sort of spinning the brush a little bit, and then I don't get that hook nearly as much. I also clean my brushes more, even synthetics, and that also seems to help. Plus, I'm also predominantly just using Pro Acryl brushes or Monument Hobbies brushes, and they don't seem to do that as much. At least I haven't had that problem. Thought about opening the windows this morning and figured out it is 100% humidity outside. Gross. Yeah, that is no good. Everything just gets damp. In regard to the grid versus ruler, I've been thinking about zones like Zombicide for my game. It's primarily a spaceship based with boarding. What are thoughts on that? That's basically what Dead Zone does from Mantic. It's not so much like you move a model and you're like, okay, I move 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. It's you have these bigger squares, and they're maybe not that big. They may be 3 inches by 3 inches or so. So when you're like, okay, I get to move 3 squares, you move 3 squares, but where you are in the square still matters because there's like scatter terrain and stuff like that. So you don't just go, okay, I'm in this square, and you can shoot from that square to this square, and it's fine. If I move into the far corner of the square or behind a little crate and all that kind of stuff, then I have cover if you're trying to shoot at me from over here. So it's still, not hex based, it's still grid based, but you still want to put yourself where in that grid that you moved into that particular square, you want to be put where it will be useful for you to be able to properly, get cover, hide, shoot, whatever. So I think that's an interesting idea because it does get rid of the need for measuring because you're just like, oh, I'm shooting 4 squares, so I know what I'm doing, or I'm moving 2 squares, but you're still not just like, there was a game, Dust Tactics was a game that was just like, oh, it's literally a board game because you just played in squares and there was almost no terrain. Now, if you played Dust Warfare, that was the full-blown, no-grid, tabletop miniatures version, and I thought that was really cool. But, yeah, there's differences there, but I can understand it. Thoughts on the new Kill Team season? I mean, we haven't seen anything of the new season per se. Well, I take that back. I guess we did see a little bit of like a guess of terrain and stuff like that. Oh, good. I was gluing this guide together yesterday from what the heck company? Not Wargame Atlantic. Anvil Industry. It's a little resin guy from Anvil Industry, and I glued his torso on backwards, and I was having a hard time getting his arm to glue on. It kept kind of coming off, and I was like, dang it. So then I was like, and then I realized, oh, his torso's on backwards. That's the problem, and I could not get it to come apart. I couldn't get the arm to stay on, but I could not get the torso apart, so I threw it in the freezer yesterday. And my wife just went into and she came back and she had pulled it apart. So yeah, if you need to unglue CA glue at some point, throw it in the freezer overnight, and it'll help. What was I talking about? Sorry. Kill Team. Yeah, we've only barely seen anything. We've just seen like a teaser about next season's Kill Team. So yeah, I don't know. I would like to see them not have the same terrain the entire season, but I feel like that's what they like doing right now. I've learned that GW's minis are investments. My kill teams and Warcry warbands are helping me get into Combat Patrol and Age of Sigmar. I've almost put together 2 Combat Patrols. Nice. Yeah. Really want to see a Combat Patrol painted by Sam? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, if we get, like, Leviathan boxes, since that there's going to be... Well, I don't know. I mean, he was always a big orc player. He might already just have orcs ready to go. Like, that would match up. I don't know if he has... I don't know if he has those choppers. The helicopter things. Defcopters. I don't know if he has any of those, but maybe he does. But otherwise, if he gets the Leviathan thing, the box, then he could either do Tyranids or Space Marines. That'd be pretty cool. We still don't really know what they showed us a picture on Twitch of like, this is going to be the Combat Patrol from the Leviathan box. But like I said in the video on Friday, they haven't showed us what the Space Marine side is supposed to be necessarily. So I'm assuming it'll probably have Terminators in it, but maybe not. I don't know. Just want to pop in and say good morning. How you doing? Very interested in Combat Patrol, but I'm probably just going to paint the minis. I can't see shoveling money at GW at the rate they demand. Well, the nice thing about Combat Patrol is that you literally, you buy a box, and then that's it. Like, You download the rules for free. You download your data sheets for your army for free. That's I think the benefit. I think that they're really going to lean in, and we haven't seen it that much yet because they haven't, like, they've been talking about the launch box and they've been talking about all this stuff and everything like that, and they've talked a little bit about Combat Patrol. I feel like I've talked more about Combat Patrol than they have, but I'm hoping that soon they're going to start talking about it more, because I think it would be very smart of them to lean heavily into Combat Patrol as if basically as this is how you get into 40K. Because if you tell people the way you get into 40K is you buy a 2,000 point army and you build it and you paint it and you start playing, that's a hard sell. That's a real hard sell. But if you tell people you buy this box, or maybe you buy used stuff on eBay, you figure out what's in the box. You don't want to buy the box. You buy used stuff from eBay. You already had some stuff, whatever. But if you're completely coming out of left field, out of nowhere, buy this box, download all the rules, play it, see if you like it. If you do, well, maybe you want to eventually expand to 1,000 points and then maybe 2,000 points or whatever. But I really see Combat Patrol, not just because of the nostalgia about how much I enjoyed playing Combat Patrol size games. I really think if they were smart, they would lean into it real heavily, because it's a way to get people into the hobby. It's a way to get people into their hobby, into 40K specifically, much more. I don't think the Kill Team does the same thing. I enjoyed the heck out of Kill Team 2018. 2021 version is not necessarily for me, but neither of them really got you into 40K. The earlier one did a little bit because the rules were at least a little bit closer to actual 40K rules. The new game is not like 40K in any way. So if you learn how to play Kill Team, you're like, cool, now how do I play 40K? It's not the same. Combat Patrol, it will be the same rules. It'll just be different stats for, the Combat Patrol lists and stuff like that, from what we understand. So hopefully they're smart and they do that and lean into it hard. Let's see here. I wish that GW would make/sell fewer bespoke limited kill teams so that we can actually get some cross-pollination between Kill Team and larger scale. I got to be honest, I think that that's what they're going to be doing with Combat Patrol, I think that they look at Kill Team being a separate game. Now, if they're smart, and like I said on Friday's video, they take some of those kill teams and they give you ways to be able to mix them together to turn them into Combat Patrols. All they got to do is, release a data set. Like, if, again, with this Ashes of Faith box, if you took those cool Inquisitorial dudes and some of the Tempestus Scion guys and you put them together and said, now that's a Combat Patrol, or you said, here's a box of these guys and these guys from the such and such kill team, like the Navy Breachers or the Casterkins or anything like that, and that's a Combat Patrol. That would be, somebody in the comments, it was a very smart comment. Someone was like, it'd be really smart of them to take some of those FOMO boxes that people refer to, where you get two forces in there and then there's usually like one extra like figure that you can only get in that box. Release Combat Patrols for those, because I know that there are people out there who buy those boxes because of the FOMO, and then they don't necessarily build it and paint it, or they start to build it and maybe even they start to paint it, but they don't get very far, and they're like, well, because those boxes, technically you can play them against each other, those two forces, but generally people buy those boxes because they want that fancy figure, but they also want to start a such and such army. I want to start Gene Stealer Cult army. Okay, cool. Well, now what am I going to do with these Custodes? I don't know, give them to my friend. Maybe you split the box, whatever. But there are people that are sitting on those boxes who now aren't getting into the game and aren't playing because they were thwarted by buying this box. If you wrote a Combat Patrol and said, this is now a playable army, all you got to do is build it, download this stuff for free, and you can start playing, you'd get more people playing the actual game. I'm pretty sure that's the way it would work. Speaking of Leviathan, I think the Flamethrower Arm Squad would fit in a Salamander's army. Oh, for sure they would. Not in historicals. Wait another decade. Lather, Lince, repeat. The average age of people getting interested into historicals seems to be 42, according to the Warhammer Soldier and Strategy big wargaming survey. That is literally when I got into Flames of War. The reason that historicals don't stick with me right now, honestly, is because, specifically World War II stuff, I don't want to play a game that somebody's grandpa was in. You know what I mean? Like, like, again, Conflict 47, nobody was actually in that conflict because it didn't happen, because there are no laser tanks and werewolves and all that kind of stuff. So that's more, but I just don't see myself enjoying playing a game based off of real events. That's, a war game specifically. That's just me. I don't begrudge people who are into it, but that's why I stay away from that type of stuff. That's why I'm not interested in playing World War II video games anymore either, unless, again, it's like weird World War II or, alternate history World War II or something like that. But regular, like, if Call of Duty makes another World War II game, no thanks. I'm not playing it. I don't know. That's just me. Do you have any advice for priming minis when you live in an apartment building and have no access to well-ventilated areas, aka or backyard? You might start looking into brush-on primer. Monuments primers, I've talked to a lot of people. I've not used them as a brush-on. I always shoot them through my airbrush, but I've had a lot of people tell me that monument primers work just as well when you brush them on. So that'd be something to try out, at least on some test models to start and see what you think. Looking forward to Can Games in 2 weeks. Signed up for Gaslands, Silent Death, Car Wars, and real life-size Kill Dr. Lucky. Oh, that's pretty cool. How busy is the summer ahead? Well, okay, so the rest of this month is getting ready for the launch of our next game, and also getting ready for Tabletop Minions Expo. I've actually this afternoon got to enter some more events. I've got some GMs who entered some more events into the expo. So the expo is coming up 3rd and 4th of June, right here in town. And you can find out more at tabletopminions.org/TMX. It's going to be a small little event. It's not a big thing. Last year we had 45 people, so it's a small little event. But in 2019 we had 80 or 85 people. So, it's rebuilding post-COVID. I get that. So yeah, that's the rest of this month, working on that stuff, working on models and things like that, working on videos for the new game for when we launch it. So that's this whole May sorted. June then, I've got kind of a bigger sponsored thing that's going to be happening on Twitch. So that's going to keep me pretty busy there, getting prepped for that, and then having that happen during Twitch. I also I'm going to a convention. The plan is right now, I'm going to a convention in Calgary, which is in Canada, Canada. And so I'm going to that convention in late June. I forget the dates off the top of my head, but that is the plan. I've been talking with them, and I'm going to be going to that convention in Calgary. And this is not exactly related to gaming, but then I also have a photo gallery. I have my first kind of like little gallery show. It's at a coffee shop. It's not fancy, but I'm going to have my own photo art show that's going to be up in July, which launches on July 1st, which means I have to get all that stuff ready to go as well and go from there. And then July, I don't think I'm going anywhere in July, which will be sort of nice. At least not that I know of right now. But then in August, I'm going to Gen Con, and then I'm back for like a week or two, and then I'm going to Nova, and so that's very busy. Also, I'm going to be, like I said, cranking out as much terrain as possible during this whole time when it's nice outside and I can do some priming and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to also be doing, like I said, trying to get as many combat patrols ready to go. After I get this combat patrol of Deathwatch ready or painted, my plan is to then probably work on... It's probably going to be Imperial Guard, probably, but it might be Blood Angels. It's going to be one of those two, and I haven't completely decided yet. I've honestly built a bunch of the Astra, well, not a bunch. I've built some of the Astra Militarum already, so I should probably paint them and then do the Blood Angels next, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so it's yeah, I'm not going to be bored this summer. I will admit that, like, this, like I was like thinking last night, I'm like, what am I going to talk about tomorrow? These subjects for this show are always, a little tiny bit of the show. It's mainly me interacting with you folks and answering questions and doing things like that. But I was like, what am I going to do so yeah, talking about summer made sense. I didn't want to make another video about Combat Patrol or that kind of thing, even though that's what I like talking about these days, because people are going to be like, oh, all you were talking about is GW, which is Currently, to some degree true, but it's not always true. You know, they only put out a new edition of 40K like once every 3 years. I mean, come on, like it's like Haley's Comet over here. Anyway, thoughts on the Apex Legends tabletop game? I've heard about it, but I don't know anything about it really. Where was I? Oh, I'm way behind. Oh my goodness. Howdy from Ohio. How you doing? Good morning from a rainy Iowa. Painting up some core space minis. Nice. Hello, Uncle Adam. You've mentioned in the past that Kill Team 2nd Edition is more complicated than first, but I remember first stratagems, phases, and specialisms being really complicated. Could you elaborate? I don't know if I said it was complicated. I just said it wasn't for me. I didn't like my biggest problem with the new version of Kill Team is I did not like the way that they changed the list building. It went from being something where like you still can build your list, sorta. Well, it depends on the forces. If you're playing Space Marines, they're like, hey, you take 5 Primaris. That's it. Have a good day. You know what I mean? Like that's it. So that was a bummer. And I've had some people recently being like, well, you say you don't like it in the new Kill Team because the list building is, but then you say you like the fact that there's no list building in Combat Patrol. And I'm like, yeah, but in a Combat Patrol box, there's still at least usually 4 different types of units, if not more, depending on the box. So, you know, if you are playing the new Combat Patrol, if you play Space Marines, you get 1 fire team of Space Marines with the compendium version. If you play most other things, you get 2 fire teams. So my old Necrons list for the 2018 version of Kill Team was some Immortals, some Warriors, a couple of Flayers or whatever skin, not Mind Flayers, what the heck were they called? Flayed ones, and a single Death Mark. Because it doesn't make sense to take a bunch of death marks. I felt like 1 death mark. It's like a sniper. It makes sense. So that was a very flavorful, interesting list, and I enjoyed playing it. Then when 2021 came along, they're like, you can take 2 of those. You can either take a unit of death marks and a unit of, immortals, or you could take a unit of this and a unit of that, or you could take 2 units of immortals. You can do that too. And it turned me off from the game. But yeah, it's just, that was the big main thing that turned me off from the new version of Kill Team. Good afternoon, and ciao from sunny and warm Sicily. How you doing? Time to spend this lazy afternoon listening and painting. Absolutely. Thanks for all you do. Love your content. Well, I appreciate that, Cyber Dude. You can get the Gellerpox separately, and I did. Nice. I thought you could get him someplace. Good morning from Tennessee. Do you have any suggestions for sci-fi terrain STLs or pre-made that would fit Space Station Zero? I don't have any specifics, I don't think, for terrain. But any kind of like just sci-fi-ish things you'd find in a space station or a spaceship, like, generators, control panels, stuff like that. If you look for that type of stuff and then just paint it up like really old and grungy, you're pretty much going to have your bases covered. A lot of people were like, when we released Space Station Zero and then GW started releasing Kill Teams with all the walls and all that stuff in there, people are like, oh, isn't that super useful because you can use all these walls and stuff in Space Station Zero. And I'm like, Space Station Zero I don't think plays very well when you have all those walls completely blocking line of sight constantly. Cover is great, completely being able to not like, that's honestly part of the problem I have with the walls in general, is that it just makes everything a choke point. So you just have to basically hopefully be able to get around this choke point or through this door. And I don't see that being interesting for a lot of different types of games. So I don't know that I would suggest that stuff. If you wanted to put it around the outside or something like that, or have a wall cutting a room, like partially in half or something like that, but going heavy with those types of walls, I don't think that works very well in Space Marine or in Space Station Zero. I also don't know that it works that well in Kill Team either, but whatever. But yeah, any kind of like sci-fi looking equipment that you just paint up kind of grungy and old and dirty is probably going to do the job. There's actually a decent amount of, at this point, there's a decent amount of battle reports for Space Station Zero out there on the internet. You could take a look at those, or on YouTube. You can take a look at those as well. Let's see here. Hello from Germany. Have you ever played Infinity? And if so, what's your thoughts on the minis and the gameplay? I have not played the new edition, 4th edition. I have gotten demos of 2nd and 3rd edition. It has just never quite clicked with me. I think the minis are cool, but I'm not super into metal these days as far as that's concerned. So that's part of a problem too. Although the metal minis are better than they used to be. They used to be like so many parts, and now they're far fewer parts, which is great. It helps for, building. But yeah, it's just never, I've got friends that play it, and it's never really struck. Like, I've had friends give me demos and I've been like, huh. And because rules to me are pretty important. I know there are lots of people out there who play a game because they love the lore, they love the miniatures or whatever, and they couldn't care less about the rules for the most part. I am the other way around. The rules are very important to me. The lore and the models, I'm going to make up my own anyway, probably, so it doesn't bother me as much. Dead Zone is technically 3-inch cubes. True. Morning from Vegas, going on a weekend getaway to play board games with 3 other dads. Well, that sounds like fun. I want to introduce them to war games, and I was thinking of good 2v2 that's easy. Recommendations: a 2v2 war game. Geez, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, you can play. I wonder if you can play on. Well, you could technically play Reign in Hell 2v2, although it's really more designed. Well, it's really designed to be basically like a 4-person free-for-all. But I mean, you could just decide you're on teams, I suppose. Yeah, not a lot of games are really into big multiplayer like that within wargaming. Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't know. That's a good question. How do you keep your workspace clean while removing mold lines? I don't. My wife is laughing. Yeah, I try to wipe my hobby knife with a damp towel. I'm wondering if there's a better way. No, I just, everything goes everywhere and it just lands on top of everything that's sitting on my table anyway. And so just once in a great while I vacuum. But that's pretty much, yeah, I've never been a clean freak. Let's just say that. Again, more chuckles from my wife. I was taught to actually rotate my pencil or lead holder while drawing in line and drafting classes back in the day. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep. Any thoughts about priming models that are skin heavy, like Daughters of Cain or Drakari, using one of those AP spray flesh primers? I love the figures, but they are so hard to paint. I think that more flesh heavy models, I have a tendency still to generally go with, like, instead of maybe a black or a white to black Zenithal prime, I might go white to gray. But then I'm still going to probably use contrast and stuff like that. But I don't get into painting skin, like layering it up and doing all that stuff with lots of opaques. I have a tendency to kind of speed it along. I should probably be better about skin, but I'm not. I just remembered I also, talking about this plans for the summer, I also have to get that that display piece done. Let me take that back. I have to get the display piece started that I'm going to have. I'm going to enter at the end of August in the Capital Palette, which is at the big painting competition at Nova Open in DC. It's built. I have the plinth. That's as far as it is right now. So I should probably get rolling on that as well. You don't want 4 boxes of jungle trees? I don't. No, I have at this point now so many meat trees from Warcry. I don't. No. Let's see here. Hope they don't keep the whole season's terrain the same too. Yeah, I agree. Why not just have the upgrade sprue and then sell the terrain separately? Yeah, I think it's because, at least in Kill Team's situation, I think it was because they were like, well, then you're going to be able to use this all, and then you're going to get into boarding patrol, right? And I'm like, maybe. I'm not, but I mean, someone might, I guess. 60 to 70 bucks a pop still feels like shoveling money at GW. Then I would tell you to buy something else, or there's plenty of companies out there that make stuff that's cheaper. No one ever has to buy anything from Games Workshop or any company, really, to be honest. But yeah, I see people complain about, like, oh man, GW puts all this stuff out there and it's so expensive, and I'm like, vote with your wallet. Don't buy it. That's not hard. That's the way I look at it. I mean, it sounds flippant, I'll admit, but it's honestly, if you don't want to support a company that does the thing you don't like, then don't buy their stuff. That's like I was talking about that earlier. Like I loved playing Diablo 1, Diablo 2, even Diablo 3. I'm not going to buy Diablo 4 because I don't like the fact that Bobby Kotick or Kotick or whatever his name is, the CEO, that he's still there. He shouldn't be. He should certainly not be working there anymore, and he is. So I'm not buying their product. And I understand that not everybody at that company is bad. I get it, but you got to vote with your wallet, you know? That's my opinion. You seem to have a super cool wife that supports your hobby. That is true. I do. Where can I find one? My girlfriend is totally anti-hobby. Does she have any hobbies at all? I don't think I've ever like been in a relationship with someone who doesn't have any hobbies. Like I think that hobbies are pretty important, but I don't know. I mean, it seems odd to be anti-hobby. I don't understand. Like, what do you do then? Like, I guess if you just sit and watch television, but that's kind of boring in my opinion. But let's see here. Kill Team is a great game. It got me into Warhammer 40k. Well, that's cool. Now I've got a 2k army of Custodes, Raven Guard, 1,200 points of Dark Angels. I'm looking forward to new Combat Patrol mode. Yeah, Combat Patrol I think has been really cool. And again, like I said, I was a super huge fan back in the day. Like that's how I started getting into it. When I bought my first Tau, we were playing Combat Patrol, and then after I sold my Tau with the help of Sam, then I moved into Chaos. And I just had Black Legion, and I just did Black Legion stuff. But again, it was Combat Patrol. So at the time, I had like, I think a Rhino and maybe a unit of 10 guys. That was about it. Combat Patrol back in the day was only 400 points, and it was kind of squirrely. This, I think, is going to be a little bit more interesting. I mean, just looking at the boxes, you know. 100% I'm waiting for this Combat Patrol thing so I can play it for the first time. Only been painting until now. Sure, absolutely. Only thing is I'm missing from the Space Wolves Combat Patrol are the Tactical Warsuit and Lieutenant. That dude is like $30 on eBay. It's inching to just getting the box for the value. I mean, it's up to you. You know, if you've already got all this stuff and you just need to buy a couple of little things, it's okay. But if it gets to a point where, like, that's the thing. Those $160 boxes, if you go through and, like, do the math on every piece in there, it's considerably cheaper than buying those things all at retail. Not like half, not by a long, but it's still a decent discount by buying those boxes. So, you know. Let's see here. Agents of the Imperium have index cards coming out. So, sure, they're going to have an index, but whether they'll have their own Combat Patrol is a different question. But that would be cool if they did. I still think they should. FOMO is the mind killer. Indeed. Any advice on starting to play with people at the store? I'm very socially anxious and get uncomfortable playing with people I don't know. I think that part of it can help if you... It would probably help maybe just to, like, if there are people that are playing, if you just kind of hang about a little bit and kind of watch, and then eventually just maybe... comments, like, don't like try to take over the conversation, especially when two people are playing. Don't be like, hey, I got this idea, and then just talk for like that they're trying to play a game. But if you kind of just hang around and sort of just integrate yourself a little bit into that, there's sometimes going to be side conversations going on and whatever, that kind of stuff. As once you get a little bit known and kind of hanging out there a bit and that kind of stuff, maybe you bring some models to work on potentially if your shop is cool with that kind of thing, you know. Eventually you start to know people and kind of maybe get some names and things like that. And then eventually it's like, hey, would you be interested in playing? And then it's not a complete stranger you're walking up to going, hey, would you like to play? It's somebody that you've seen at the shop multiple times and things like that. And then, you know, that's kind of easing into it to some degree, I think might be the way to go. Nice day for fishing, ain't it? I don't know. I haven't gone fishing in 30 years, probably. Maybe longer. I used to go fishing with my dad when I was a kid. And then by the time that I got interested in going fishing with my dad, then he wasn't fishing anymore, which was a bummer. But when I was a little kid, like, I didn't want to fish because you could just sit there and kind of hang out and like look at a pole and wait for the bobber to go under and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to, like, I don't know, look at bugs and do stuff and eventually fall in the river. That happened to me one time. Yeah, so by the time I got to the point where I could sit and like have a beer and sit there and, you know, wet some bobbers or whatever with my dad, he wasn't fishing anymore, unfortunately. So Hope you're having a good weekend. It is a good weekend. I have not done any layout on the game this weekend because we got it. I got it shipped off to the print company on Thursday, shortly after noon. I stayed up until on Wednesday night into Friday. I stayed up until 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I sent the inside part of it off to Vince to take another look at, and then I took a nap for about 3 hours, and then I got up, and then I worked on finishing up the cover, both the front and back. It's all one piece. And then sent that to Vince, and then he was looking, and then I sent it to my wife, and then she did a little bit more, proofreading and stuff, and then packaged it all up and did all the things that needed to be done and tried to touch up all the last bits, and then uploaded it to the system at Wargame Vault, and then they sat on it for the rest of the day, and then sometime in the evening they forwarded it to the print company, and then the print company sat on it and did what's called pre-flight. Pre-flight is a thing in printing. It's like you got the file from whoever made the file, and now you have to go through and make sure that like all the fonts are there, and like there's no technical problems. You're not going to go through and proofread and go, oh, you spelled this wrong and stuff like that. It's more like all the parts that are supposed to be here are like none of the files are missing. It's more technical stuff, pre-flight. And then once the pre-flight's done, which took them days, as it does, because we're not the only customer. When I woke up on Saturday morning, there was an email from the company saying, hey, that's done. If you would like to order, well, you have to order a proof. That's the thing with working with these folks. You have to order a proof and get it, look it over, and then okay it and say, this is okay. And then they will allow you to turn the game on publicly so people can buy it and stuff like that. So hopefully we will get the proof this week. We paid because you can order the proof, and then they're like, how fast do you want it shipped to you? And we went next day air, which is going to be, I think it was like $90 for next day air, but we're like, we want it as soon as possible, because if we get it and we're like, oh, the printing's too, like I didn't do this right and things are too light and stuff like that. Like that happened with Rain and Hell. With our first book, because we hadn't worked with them before, I had these little symbols that I put behind. There's the 6 different philosophies, and I had a different symbol for each philosophy, and I put it behind like the fluff paragraph, and I put it, in there, scaled it back to 13% transparency, and then when we got the printed book, you could barely see them. So I had to go back into the file and turn them all to 18% transparency, and then they looked okay. But we had to get another proof made. So we don't want to have to do 2 proofs if we can help it, but if we do have to do 2 proofs, if they go fast, which is why you pay $90 to get it as soon as possible, then, maybe we can still get 2 proofs done and then still order books to have books in time for TMX. Push comes to shove, worst comes to worst, we'll have our proof book there so people can see it, but we wouldn't have any print copies to sell at TMX. People would have to buy it online like everybody else. So hopefully it doesn't go to that, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. A bunch of people saying that Monument Primer is good to brush on. Good to hear. Thousands of dollars worth of Axis and Allies collectible miniatures is enough to scratch my World War II gaming desires. War at Sea game is great fun. Oh, I remember that game. Yeah. Big fun, if not big volume. What is the policy in splitting a GW box? If it's, let's say, 40K Kill Team starter box, do you split the price 50-50 even though one of you is getting the terrain core rules? That's up to you folks. It's up to the 2 people who are doing it. I'm trying to think. Well, I have split boxes before, but it's been a while. I remember I split the box for Age of Sigmar 1.0. I actually split it with the moderator Matt. But yeah. But I think it wasn't a 50-50 split because I think I had the book. He just wanted the corn guys. What? No Origins? Well, it's the same time as this Calgary thing, so that is a bummer. Because I kind of was thinking about, because Sam's going to Origins, and so then I was like, well, Sam's going to Origins. Vince lives right near there. He lives just outside of Columbus. And so I should go to Origins too. Then the three of us all hang out. It'd be great. And then I was like, oh wait, but I've already said that I'm going to go to this thing in Canada. So it turns out to be the same weekend. I'm way behind again. Congrats about the art show. Well, thank you. What kind of photography do you do? I do a lot of jazz photography myself. Nice. I like to shoot street photography somewhat. I like to shoot kind of like sort of landscape, but I always like to have, if I can, some sort of like, I'm not just like looking for like trees and mountains, but I also want some sort of human element in there as well. Maybe the dichotomy of that a little bit, like, oh, this mountain range, but then also telephone pole or something like that. You know, I like to kind of do things like that. I like to shoot people to I like to shoot pictures of people, but I don't get to do it enough, unfortunately. But I'd like to do it more. But I generally, when I'm shooting stuff for art purposes, it's always black and white. I don't like to shoot in color for art because the world's already in color, and art, I don't know. That's just a thing. I've always been interested in black and white for that kind of stuff. I'm brush priming some Counterblast Eidos with Stynylrez gray primer. Unfortunately, it's a close match to the resin. That is always a problem with gray primer, is that you paint it on and you're like, did I miss parts? I can't tell because it's the same color as the plastic. Yeah, that's why I'm not usually a gray primer user, is because then I'm like, oh, geez, I missed this whole part under here, but I couldn't tell until I got real close with my magnifying glasses on. So yeah. While I like the new Kill Team, I lost all of my elites. I'd love an elite book, even though GW is making way too many books. Yeah, I mean, I kind of liked that add-on to the commander idea was an interesting idea, but we tried playing it a couple of times and we were like, eh. But elites, we used the elite stuff quite a bit when we were playing Kill Team, because it took you up to like 125 for points. You got some like cool like faction kind of bonuses and tweaks in there and stuff like that. And they had some different models you could bring in. I liked the elites add-on to Kill Team. The commander one, in theory, was cool, but after trying it out, we were like, meh. The arena we never even bothered with for Kill Team 2018. And this new Kill Team, like they just kind of, like I said, that just there is kind of list building, but it's, I don't know. It seems really dull. And even though there's no list building in Combat Patrol, if you look at all the Combat Patrols, there's stuff going on. Like you got, like I said, I can't think of one that doesn't have at least 4 units, which is to say, like some sort of troops, intercessors. Like well, I take that back. No, that's not true. I still have 4. My current box, the one that I'm doing, Death Watch, has got a unit of intercessors. It has a unit of aggressors. It has a apothecary, and it has a Primaris Lieutenant. So that's 4 units. Same with Blood Angels. You've got 5 intercessors, 5 interceptors. I don't know, the sneaky guys. You've got a librarian, and you have the floating El Camino, and you have aggressors. So that's 5 units, So yeah. Archon Studios makes some great sci-fi, random debris, bridges, junk. Yeah, they do make some really nice terrain. The City Ruin stuff, I think, is spectacular. I've been working on it. I've got it primed, base coated, and I'm just going back once in a while and doing detailing, and I want to get that stuff finished up soon because I think it's going to be great for it's going to be great for Combat Patrol, I think, and lots of games. In Quarantine 37 for Stargrave, which has space zombies and alien-esque scenarios, they say, we know you want to make corridors because it looks right, but don't. You'll just get choke points and no movement. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Do you think boarding actions for 40k will be a thing with 10th? I think that if they decided to say, well, we're not doing boarding actions in 10th, people would be like, then why did you come out with all these boxes? I'm assuming they're going to keep it going. My hope is that they make it so that boarding patrols is something that you can actually get. Because right now, if you want to play boarding patrols, you can buy the boxes with the boarding patrols models, but good luck finding the rules right now. Because I think they're in some of that Arca Omen junk that you can't find right now. So hopefully they'll put something out and be like, here's the rules for boarding actions, but we'll see. You also play Rangers of Shadow Deep with 4 versus AI. It's great fun. That's pretty cool. Good morning from the Pocket Dimension. How you doing, JP Got Rockets? I'm pretty terrible at batch painting. I can't seem to focus on it long enough to get them properly done. See, I love batch painting because I just love them. Like, all right, we're painting boots, do 10 of those. And then, okay, next we're doing this thing, and next we're doing that thing. Assembly line, I'm a big fan. Like, I'm working on 10 Primaris Intercessors for my Death Watch right now, and on Twitch, and I'm doing those guys is not a problem. I think the most that I've ever done was 13 Plague Monks, Skaven Plague Monks. I did 13 of them at once. Previous to that, I think I maybe did a dozen Beastmen, or maybe it was only 10. I don't know if it's 10 or 12, but yeah, I like doing that. I didn't used to, but I've gotten into it. But different strokes for different folks. Mold line removing. Glue a two-sided tape or roll of tape and cut the above tape. Plastic shavings stick to tape. Huh. Meat trees with barbecue sauce. I still don't know how they would taste that well. Frankly, I stopped buying GW stuff because I vote with my wallet. Plenty of awesome STLs out there. Sure, absolutely. No, you're not wrong. I wouldn't have minded 4 sets of Space Hulk terrain if each book had a different kind of walls, not just Imperium. Would have loved some Chaos or Tau walls. I mean, that's the trick, is that they always talk about how the Space Hulks are a bunch of ships all stuck together, right? But evidently they're all the same ship over and over and over again. My wife tolerates my obsession. At least it keeps me at home. Keeps you off the streets. I think that's important. Hello from Milwaukee. I'm currently working on some demonic wagons as Rain and Hell scatter terrain. Nice. Demonic wagons. That sounds fun. Voting with your wallet is the best way to tell companies what they should do. Thanks for you guys reminding me I'm redirecting my Diablo money to more minis and paint. There you go. Tau for sale, indeed. My girlfriend has no hobbies apart from wanting to travel a lot, and it does not include going to conventions. I mean, travel's a hobby, kind of. I mean, yeah, I would say so. I mean, not everybody has a hobby where they make stuff. Some people, their hobby is watching movies, and watching a lot of different types of movies and all that kinds of stuff, and talking about movies and all that. And that's fine. But yeah, my wife is a musician. This is, back here, that's her cello technically. And she knits, knits a lot of knitting going on, which is why I always have hats to wear. I'm not wearing one right now, but in general, when I'm in the basement, especially in the winter, I'm always wearing a hat because it's cold. But then I have scarves and I have all kinds of things. So yeah, she does a lot of knitting. So I'm buying miniatures and she's buying yarn. It's kind of the same thing. We're both she's not like, hey. Also, she knows it's for me, it's part of the business to some degree. I'm doing it. It's for important business stuff. And also my wife does like to play tabletop games, board games and stuff like that. I'm going to get her into some wargaming eventually. I don't think she'll ever paint, but seriously, my wife doesn't play games, but we are compatible in the ways that matter. We respect each other's hobbies, though. I'm not dropping a ton of games without her knowing. Sure. I found a boyfriend through the hobby is what I did. I mean, that's a good way to do it, too. My old hobby was drinking myself stupid. This is far more rewarding and healthy. Sure. Sorry if it's always been explained. Why did you sell off your Tau? I've always been told never sell your toys. Chaos is cool. I get it, but Tau would transfer great to other games. At the time, this is again back in, I think I sold my Tau in 2010, maybe, I think. It was a situation, and I didn't sell any of my painted Tau. This is also important. The Tau stuff that I sold was all stuff that I had purchased because I was eventually going to make a big 2,000 point army, and then I decided I didn't want to make a 2,000 point army of Tau. There was nothing wrong with the Tau. I bought them originally because I thought they would be easy to paint, and I was kind of right. But at the time, I was much more interested in doing more kit bashing and conversions and stuff like that. And there's not a lot of conversions that are easy to do with Tau. Tau kind of look like Tau. So that's why I got interested in Chaos. So that's why I sold the Tau. Now, I still have my Kroot. I still have the painted Kroot. I still have my painted Fire Warriors. I think that was literally about as far as I got before I sold this stuff. I built a couple of Devilfish, but I never painted them. I built a couple of battle suits, but I never painted them, and everything else was still on sprue. So what I was selling was the stuff that was unpainted, but the stuff that's painted I still have because I don't like to sell painted models. So that's why I did that, so that I could then parlay into, because this is before the channel started. I didn't start the channel until 2013, but I was playing I was playing Tau in the late 2000s, and then I sold the stuff. I believe it was at Adepticon 2010. I think it was my first or second Adepticon. So it was either 2010 or 2011. Yeah, so going fishing for a week in July. Well, that's kind of fun. Should have told Vince that you're part of the writer's strike. Well, he's the writer, really. Like, he does we come up with the concepts together, and then, well, like, Space Station Zero was based off of an idea he had. Rain in Hell was based off of an idea I had. This new game was based off of an idea I had. But he does the majority of all of the writing and designing as far as all that, because he's better at math and he does the writing and all that jazz. And then I do all of the art direction and layout and graphics and all that stuff. So we work well together there. So in that situation, technically, but neither of us are part of the union anyway, so we wouldn't be able to do the writer's strike. There you go. What's the new Badger Studios game about? Well, we're not putting the information out there yet, but I can tell you that it is near future. So it's not sci-fi, it's not fantasy, it's not modern, it's a little bit beyond modern. And it is solo playable, co-op playable, versus playable. The game is asymmetrical in that your force will be probably in number of models generally much larger than the force that you're fighting against, but they should still be balanced. It's going to be played on a 3x3, so it's going to be a little bit bigger that way, because our last two games are all played on the 22x30 size that is, Kill Team and Warcry. So this will be, and again, these are always suggestions. You can play on whatever size you want. We're not going to come bust your chops. But yeah. Releasing a new game, or is this an expansion? This is a new game. Yeah, we basically are putting out a new game every year. That's kind of the way it goes. Let's see here. Used to go fishing with my dad. Was more interested in just spending time with him than fishing, though. I mean, I was a little kid, and that was, little kid. You have a hard time paying attention to fishing as a little kid. At least it was difficult for me. What are your thoughts on a recast? I'm against it. Not a fan. If you're a company that has the ability to make stuff, then make your own stuff. Don't recast somebody else's. It's technically theft. This is going to be such a great summer. I think so. Hey, Will Goblin, how you doing? Are you going to Gen Con is the question, Will Goblin? This question I'm sure this was a long time ago because I'm way behind in the chat. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Gen Con. It's going to be fun. When you are painting a 40k or Age of Sigmar army, do you go full detail on all the models or spend more time on the commanders and do a quick, decent job on the troops? I would not do the full detail in every model because it'll take you forever. I mean, literally, with some people, it will take them an entire edition to get a 2,000 point army painted, and then that 2,000 point army is probably not going to work the same. And then they're going to be like, oh, well, I got to start over again or whatever. So yeah, no, I'm not super into that. I generally, if I was to do an army that big, which I'm generally not into, I'm not going to go full detail on everything. Because I'm generally more interested in playing skirmish games, I do go generally a bit higher detail and everything because I'm only maybe building 5, 10, 15, 20 models. But I do have a tendency to spend a bit more time on the fancy, like if there's an HQ type thing, I'm going to spend a bit more time on that for sure. I was going to leave my Dark Apostle to the side, but now I'm plotting a conversion for him. He doesn't look iron. There you go. Hyped for the new Snarling Badger game? I am too, Malev. I am too. Where was I at? Is Snarling Badger releasing a new game, or are you talking about an expansion? New game. Yeah. Like I said, we'll be doing pretty much a new game every spring is the plan. Like we're going to put out, we've at this point, Space Station Zero came out late summer last year, but our plan is going forward, we're going to always try to hit probably early June. I need to I need to break up my batch painting. I like 1 hour of batch painting and then work on one model. Sure, I can see that. I mean, whatever you got to do to make it so you can get like the models you want done, like that's the way you should try it out. And if it's a situation where you're like, I don't like doing it like this way, try to figure out a different way and see if that works better for you, because everybody's different, 5 is my batch paint limit. If I go past that, the gray matter starts to break down. I can understand that. You do a lot more blending, though, Malev, than I do. I mean, you're like, you know, a much fancier painter. I'm usually kind of speeding things along a little bit more. I do batches if the minis don't have too many steps. If the minis have a lot going on, then it feels like it'll never end. Yeah, I don't know. I don't seem to have that issue. Yeah, I don't know. Imperium walls can be chaos walls with some work and some paint. I mean, true. Yeah, that's true. Five fit on a paint stir stick. One stick is drying while the other one's being worked on. That's a good way to do it too if you're like really into batch painting. Yeah, that's the way that's the way I did my Beastmen back in the day. Is I think I must have done a dozen because I had 3 sticks, I think, with 4 Beastmen on each stick. That's how I did it. It can be a lot of fun to plan trips, learn the language, study the history, plan to visit what's in the museum. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Wish they would expand Kroot. They're some of my favorite Xenos. I mean, they kind of did. They had that extra Kroot army in a Kill Team box, right? Wasn't that recently? There was a Kill Team box that had a bunch of Kroot in it. Most welcoming community in the hobby on YouTube. You are a stellar hobby advocate doing a great service. Well, I appreciate that. Absolutely. TMX question: if I am bunking in the dorms, is there breakfast, or is there a good diner nearby? There's not breakfast, but there is there's a bagel place across the street called Big Apple Bagels, I believe. A lot of people like to go there. What else is nearby? I'm trying to think what's nearby as far as food, because it's a college area, so there's a decent amount of stuff. Let's see, if we get down towards the river, there is a place called Parker John's that is a barbecue place, which is probably not open for breakfast, but it's a nice barbecue place. Big Apple Bagels. There's a Bangkok Thai, which is really good Thai food, but it's probably also not open for breakfast. But the bagel place certainly is. Let's see. There's a cookie place called Insomnia Cookies. There's a pizza place called Politos. There's another pizza place called Toppers. There's Papa John's. There's a taco place called Taquiza's. There's a sandwich place. There's a Subway, but there's also Herbert and Gerbert's. What the heck else is over there? Oh, there's a place called Mama's Noodle Bar. Also probably not open for breakfast, but pretty good. Very good, actually. I like the Mama's Noodle Bar. Yeah, there's a bunch of different places down there. But like I said, probably the best place for breakfast is going to be Big Apple Bagels, which is right across the street down a little tiny ways. Not too big. When will you make a game based off of an idea that chat had? We have so many good ones. I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. We've got plenty of ideas, as it turns out. Ideas are actually the easier part, I think. I don't know. I guess we'll see in like 5 years and be like, I don't know, we don't have any ideas. But I see, it seems unlikely. Ideas are always the easier part. With the game you helped create, how big is this play space? Our next game is like a 3 foot by 3 foot, but our 2 previous games, Space Station Zero and Rain in Hell, are both on like Kill Team size boards, which are 22 inches by 30 inches. So they're pretty small. We don't see ourselves really maybe ever making anything as big as a 4x6. I mean, heck, even 40K is not 4x6 anymore. It's technically, what, 44 by 30? No, 44 by 60. 44 by 30 is the incursion size. It's also the size that I think it's the size that Combat Patrol is played on too. I do batches if the minis don't have too many steps. Oh, I read that. My largest batch paint was the Cruel Boys half of the Dominion box. Fun stuff. They are cool models. It can be a lot of fun to plan trips. I read that. I've scrolled back too far. Don't think I can swing Gen Con this year, but I'm 100% going next time. Gen Con is very cool, but it is massive and sort of hard to get hotel rooms for. If you want hotel room downtown, that is the hard part. Yeah. I'm all about miniature agnostic games. I don't like using non-GW models in GW games and non-Battletech on Battletech for agnostics. All bets are off. Sure. I mean, it's, again, a preference, you know. I like to use GW models in, like, miniature agnostic games. If I found the right models, I could easily see myself using non-GW models in a GW game. Like, if I found some models, like, I don't know, let's say I wanted to play... I can't think of anything where I don't like the models enough. Let's say, whatever, Dark Eldar. Whatever the Drakari, Drakkar Noir, whatever they are. Those guys, like, if I found models that I liked better, that didn't look like weird space elf guys, but I wanted to play the rules. Like, I loved the stats, but I'm like, I hate the models. I would easily see myself getting 3D printed stuff or whatever the deal would be and going that direction. I could see myself doing that. But in general, I'm generally okay with the models that GW makes for most things. And so, yeah. Oops. I'd like to say thank you as well. I wanted to be painting by now, but the conversation in chat has been too good to step away. Well, that's very nice of you to say, Bubba Doom. I have a friend who wants me to go to Gen Con, but for the Legend of Five Rings events. I've got friends, the guys that I go to Gen Con with used to play in the Legend of Five Rings card game, like way back in the day, back when Gen Con was still in Milwaukee. Like, they were heavy into that. Like, one of the guys that goes, not every year, but goes from time to time, he has a bunch of the symbols from that card game, like, tattooed to his arm and stuff like that. So, yeah. Because I'm a stubborn Taurus, I paint to a consistent standard across my forces, but spend a little bit more effort on the characters. Well, there you go. Jim Crimmins, how you doing? I follow Sonic Sledgehammer's painting tutorials to batch paint my bolt action armies. I like his stuff. I liked watching his videos. He seems like a nice guy. Year 5 zone suggestions. All games show up in a portal in a room on the space station. Ooh, there you go. In Annapolis, we have Carlson's Donuts, breakfast in the AM, and Bang and Thai for lunch and a dinner. Ooh. I have a great idea. I just need someone to do all the work for exposure. Yeah, we got a lot of people like that when I was, working full time at Milk Can. There's a lot of people who'd be like, I got this idea for an app and I want you guys to partner with me, which means you guys do all the work and then we share profits if it works. And we're always like, no, you pay us and then we'll do the work and then you keep all the profits. How about that? Yeah, profits. Gen Con this year? Indeed. That's part of my summer. Yep. I forget where we're staying. We're either staying at the Hilton again or the Embassy Suites. I think it's the Embassy Suites. We're staying in the penthouse at the Embassy Suites. Now, you might be like, oh, isn't that fancy? Well, there's like 10 of us. So it's like, the penthouse is very fancy, especially if you were there with like just you and your significant other. That would be super crazy fancy or whatever. But when there's like 10 dudes in there, it's less fancy. I'm sleeping on a air mattress over by the dining room table. It's probably what I'm going to be doing again. Like we did. When was the last time we stayed at that place? I think it was pre-COVID. I think it was 2019 was the last time we stayed at the Embassy Suites. Upside of the Embassy Suites, though, is that they do have like around 5 to 6 p.m. They have 5 to 7. I think they have like basically if you bring your like, hey, I have my key card. I am sleeping here. Then you get free drinks or something. I don't know. There's some sort of manager's like mixer kind of thing that goes on in the afternoons. So I guess technically free drinks is and technically they do have a continental breakfast, but it's fine. But I have a tendency to go to Jack's Donuts anyway because they're really good. I'm planning a beach-themed kill team board for the summer. Ooh, that's kind of fun. I've got a couple of board ideas ready to go, like I talked about in, I think, maybe the last or the previous, even to that, Every Other Sunday show. I did a little bit of gluing just before having to head into hardcore layout mode, but I did some gluing of some stuff, so it's on the way. Both me and another one of my gaming group are going to build our own terrain this summer, probably because we are too naive and optimistic, but I think it'll be fun. I think it is fun. I think it's fun to do that kind of stuff. Wargames Atlantic is teasing Trader Guard proxies. Yeah, I think I saw that. I was actually building some of their Ura, I believe is what they call those guys. They're kind of sort of soldiery. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I've been liking those guys. I was building some of those yesterday, actually. Drakkar Noir served me well in high school. See, there you go. I'm still putting together a travel kit for my trip in July. I'll have tons of time there to paint leisurely in daylight. Well, that'll be fun. Gaddis Gaming, how you doing? LR5 taking it back. I wish that there was an LR5 wargame. That would be really neat. Didn't they have one? No, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Or L5R, sorry. My experience with L5R is you don't get people on the fence with it. I wish that they would do a better minis game for it. See, there you go. One thing I'm looking forward to this summer is taking my Eldar and painting them up as space pirates, not space marines. Make them all dirty and worn. Yeah, I like to paint that way in general anyway. L5R would make a great war game, so I swear that property has had the worst luck. I've heard those things. I've never played or any of this stuff, but I've heard that it's had rough luck. I want to make a game just because I'm not seeing something that I want, or there are game ideas I like, but I don't like the implementation. Yeah, I mean, it's a reason to do it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I will say, as a person who's been doing it for a long time, not just within this iteration of Snarling Badger, but for back in the day when my friend Peter and I were Snarling Badger Games instead of Snarling Badger Studios, which is me and Vince, it's a lot easier to do it now than it used to be. It's a lot easier because of things like Wargame Vault, because of things like PDF. Like when we made our first game me and Peter made our first game in 1992. There weren't even PDFs back then. Like there was no. So we had to like make our game and then sell it to people like up front and like try to get it in local stores around us and stuff like that. Like it was a whole thing. And yeah, there was no way, like we weren't going to be able to get into distribution because we couldn't make enough of them and we didn't have a marketing budget and all that kind of stuff. So we would go to Gen Con and sell it there, and we would sell it to local shops and that kind of stuff and whatever. You know, but nowadays we could have, you know, our first game was a card game. We could now easily do in-color cards through drivethroughcards.com. Like, you know, really nice rounded corners, full color, really nice feel to them and all that kind of stuff. They crank out amazing looking cards. And so, yeah, we could have just done that and gotten spread all over the world easily, very simply. But yeah, actually, I take that back. Our second game was a card game. First game was not. Second game was a card game. But again, same kind of problems. I struggle with Gen Con. I've been 3 times and I love it, but I'm really uncomfortable spending money in Indiana since Roe was struck down. Yeah, I know what you mean. The benefit is that I think Indianapolis is like a little bit more friendly than that because of that, but I know what you mean. I have too much scrap to turn into terrain. Being a contractor has its perks. True. Is your gaming convention sold out? Oh gosh, no. I'm hoping this upcoming week, now that the game has been uploaded and all that's taken care of, I'm going to be having conversations with Sam and Vince, and I think also Ninjan, and I'm going to be figuring out how to get the issue is that like normal, like, oh, you come into the convention, cool, that we don't bother with pre-sales. You don't have to just show up and buy a ticket and it's fine. We're not that big by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, last year we had 45 people come, so it's small. But the guys are trying to, we want to have, painting classes this year potentially, and there will be limited numbers of seats. So I have to figure out some sort of way for people to pre-buy tickets for at least that part. So I got to figure that out. And I've been unable to do so over the last 2 weeks because I've just been completely head down getting the game out. And now that's the plan, is this to try to get this figured out now so that people could buy tickets if they want to come and get some classes. So I am behind is what I am on that, unfortunately. Maybe people asked before, will you build an old world army? I won't. There's some of the models I think are cool. So I might, like that guy with the antlers on his head. It reminds me of the Knights Who Say Knee a little bit. So I kind of like him. I thought that the Tomb King I didn't like that Tomb King sculpt at all. That they showed off at the Warhammer Fest. But no, I'm not a rank and flank guy. I don't like rank and flank games. I never played Warhammer Fantasy because, again, I don't like rank and flank style games. So for me, that's going to be a no. That's going to be a no for me, Doug. Went to a small convention in Florida and saw every game I've been wanting to make. Well, that's cool. Sometimes my eyes are bigger than my hobby time. I think that my eyes are always bigger than my hobby time. I've teased working on a RuneQuest inspired mini warband. Still haven't done it. Please tell me there was a Trapper Keeper involved with writing the first game. 1992? Were Trapper Keepers still a thing? I remember Trapper Keepers being a thing in the 80s when I was in grade school and stuff like that, and even high school, maybe. Mostly grade school. I don't think we used a Trapper Keeper, though. I mean, we had folders. Oh, God, we had folders. Lord knows. But not Trapper Keepers, I don't think. Just keeping ink in the printer was enough problem in the old days. Yeah, that's true. Can you share the website again for the con? There we go. tabletopminions.org/tmx. I've got at least 2 or 3, maybe 4 other events that I need to enter this afternoon. So I'll enter them probably still this afternoon, and then other people will continue to keep signing up for things. Generally, the majority of the events have a tendency to get put in like in the last month before the show. So we're starting to see that now. I'm not one of those folks who because there are some game conventions that were make a cutoff and they're like, if you don't put your stuff in before this date, then it's not getting in. And I get that because gamers need a deadline. But on the other hand, if it ends up being 2 days before the show and you're like, oh, I think I should run something, I'm not going to tell you no. So we can still put it in. It's on the web. If I was getting books printed, actual physical, programs, well, obviously you got to have a cutoff date for that. But it's on the website. It's fine. It'll be fine. So anyway, yeah, tabletopminions.org/tmx. Does anyone know of any space-friendly ways to make and store terrain? I've gotten into the hobby recently and I have no terrain, but I'm moving into a dorm soon. There's cardboard terrain sometimes you can use. I mean, Tinker Turf, but the Tinker Turf is not necessarily designed to be... It's designed to come to you flat, but then you kind of build it and glue it all together. I don't know if it's designed to be stored flat, particularly, so I don't know how well that would work. I still plan to resurrect a dead game from 1978, Strike Team Alpha by Game Science Publications, written by M. Scott Kurtik. Oh, that's kind of cool. Mini Agnostic Home Play for the win. Same models for Stargrave, 5 Parsecs, Space Station Zero. Yep. Similar case for 5 Leagues for the Borderlands, Rangers of Shadow Deep, even some Silver Bayonet. Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the benefit of, one of the big benefits of miniature agnostic games is that you can use a bunch of miniatures on multiple different games. Trapper Keepers aren't still a thing. I think they've come back. Yeah, I think they've come back as a retro thing. Do you ever think there's going to be a successful Star Trek miniatures game? Will it be spaceships or the ground base? I mean, I would think it would be spaceships. If there's going to be anything successful, I would think it would be spaceships. I don't know that running around as a bunch of Star Trek guys... You said Star Trek, right? Did I read that wrong? Yeah, Star Trek. I don't know that running around as a bunch of Star Trek guys shooting each other with phasers seems crazy fun. At least not to me. But the spaceship game, I used to play the FASA game, Star Trek Tactical Combat Simulator. I used to play the heck out of that. That was a lot of fun. Oh. Let's see here. I store my terrain in those Tupperware bins or any manufacturers of... Yeah, no, that's true. The storage totes are helpful. Depending on the terrain. I got a friend who used to keep a lot of terrain in storage totes, and he would keep them in You know those like styrofoam packing peanut things? He would just, because then that way they wouldn't bump and scratch together. But the thing is that then you had, the packing peanuts kind of all over the place, and they would be static electricity and stick to stuff. So you had to be kind of careful about that. But otherwise, it was a good storage solution because he would like take them places and stuff like that. If it's just sitting in your house or your dorm room, as long as the stuff's not getting shifted around too much, it shouldn't scratch each other. Like pieces shouldn't rub against each other too much, I wouldn't think. But he would take his stuff places, like, and so then he would pack everything in those styrofoam packing peanuts. Let's see here. There is a successful Star Trek minis game from Armadillo or Amarillo Design Bureau. Sort of. Well, okay. So, I mean, in my mind, that game is technically not Star Trek. I mean, it is, but it isn't, right? It's not exactly licensed. It's weird. It rides this weird line. I don't know how they do it. I don't know if it's just some sort of grandfathered in thing that they've got with, like, I don't know, Gene Roddenberry's kids. I don't know exactly how it is that they keep making a game that looks very much like Star Trek, but is not technically Star Trek, and they don't get sued. It's also possibly because it doesn't sell a lot. There's not a ton of people out there. I think what Gaddis is talking about is like from a bigger company, like a bigger pop, like are we ever going to see a Star Trek game kind of along the lines of like X-Wing, Star Wars X-Wing? Now, admittedly, there was a Star Trek game made by the same company that made X-Wing, Fantasy Flight, right? They made a game that was like that, or somebody else made it. Did WizKids make it? But it was using the same type of rule set. Anyway, it was kind of popular for a while, but it hasn't stuck around. I mean, the Star Wars X-Wing game has had more legs than the Attack Wing game for Star Trek. The Star Trek Attack Wing game, I think, was slightly more detailed and maybe even a bit more interesting, but it was also weird that you could do, like, you could have, like, Picard being the captain of, like, a Vulcan ship and stuff like that, or whatever. It was kind of odd that way. I don't know. Playing Star Trek and shooting each other with phasers is more fun if you say pew pew. That is true. I mean, I can say that. I'll do that with 40K. I don't care. I'll do it with anything I want. Yeah. Don't remember the name, but Bob Moore, there is a company that does pop-up terrain. You say you buy the books and just open it up. Yeah, there is somebody that makes like a board and you open up it like a book and it just looks like blink and like the terrain pops up or something like that. There is foldable terrain out there, collapsible terrain, but it is generally mostly cardboardy, which is fine because it's usually then printed and you don't have to paint it. You can put stuff on top of totes as well if you have to. True. I'm thinking if TMX is a first convention, what do you think? It's small. If you're within driving distance, I don't think it's a bad idea. It's fun. You come and you learn a bunch of different games because what happens at the convention, and again, convention is a strong word, which is why I generally call it an expo, the Tabletop Minions Expo. It's generally people come and they're running games, and so you can basically sit down and then learn how to play, and they have demos going on, and there's kind of times when things are and stuff like that. It goes from like 10 in the morning roughly till 10 at night. And then generally at 10 at night, we then leave and then we walk to a bar and then maybe have some cocktails or just hang out and chat and stuff like that. And that's a fun thing. And then on Sunday, we come back and play again until about, 3 or 4. It's not very long. But it's also relatively inexpensive. And so we're going to have some vendors to some degree. Snarling Badger Studios will be there, of course. Hopefully we will have copies of the new game. If not, we will have copies of Rain in Hell and Space Station Zero. Those are already here at the house, so we will have copies of that. And hopefully there'll be copies of the new game as well. Who else is going to be there? The one-page rules folks are going to be there. That's pretty cool. I mean, they're not going to, be selling anything, I don't think, but I think they're going to be giving away printed models and stuff like that from their Patreon and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. And they'll be running demos as well. Yeah. Starfleet Battle's been around since the 80s. Oh, I'm familiar with it. I have the pop-up terrain from Upzone. Upzone, that's a good name. And Tabletop Titans, I want to add some plastic terrain, but it is nice to have some that folds up into a box, for sure. All terrain is collapsible once. That's also true. HeroClix did a Star Trek game. I got the starter pack back in 2012, but never saw any boosters. Yeah. I mean, WizKids had, I think, unpainted plastic Star Trek ships that you could buy in theory, but I never saw them anywhere except at like Gen Con and not for sale. They were like in a booth. They're like, oh, coming soon. And you're like, cool. And I'm pretty sure you could get them somewhere. I don't know where though, but like I never saw them in a store. I see all the little D&D like WizKids stuff and all that jazz and Pathfinder, but I've never seen, and I guess there were also maybe Transformers maybe too. I don't know. I was like, the ships are cool. I could see using those for a fun kind of extra game or I don't know, something, but I never ended up actually seeing them in the wild. So I mean, running around shooting people with phasers sounds plenty of fun to me, but then again, my Space Station Zero crew are basically a Star Trek bridge crew. Well, that's fun. See, that's cool. One of the biggest problems with the Star Trek game is that the Paramount negotiates the licenses too frequently. So just as the game gets going, the company loses the license. Yeah, I have a suspicion it has something to do with that. It's like, it's weird because Paramount used to be really a lot more, I don't want to say lax, but a little bit more hands-off about that stuff. And they have changed in recent years. It may sound silly, but I think magnet tiles have some potential for pop-up terrain. After 2 weeks of digging through my storage pod I used to move, I finally found the box with my paints brushes. Granted, it probably forced me to get things out faster, but well, see, that's helpful. Yeah. There is an X-Wing soundboard app called Pew Pew. Well, that makes total sense. That's fun. First time in 5 years I've made a live show. Well, we're glad to have you here, Mark. I bought some unpainted Star Trek ships on clearance from Miniatures Market. See, that's like, I just don't understand how they didn't get out into the wild. I just like, yeah, you can get them from Miniatures Market, but I couldn't find them in a store anywhere. Thinking about driving up for TMX from Atlanta. Oh gosh, that's a very long ways. That's a very, very, very long ways. What do I need to bring? Minis and paint? Well, if you're going to come and take classes, we will have to determine soon what people need to bring, and I need to talk with the guys about that. So hold off. Atlanta's a really long drive to Wisconsin. And again, this is a very, very tiny little weird convention. Again, it's an expo. Yeah. Modifius has official Star Trek STLs. Oh, that's kind of cool. Starfleet Battles has some kind of odd limited license to some stuff from Star Trek, the animated series and the technical manual, but nothing newer, and apparently can keep it forever. Oh, well, that's cool. My wife going pew pew as she beat me playing that pre-X-Wing Star Wars game where you had to pop out and put together the little ships. Oh, yeah. I remember that one. That's how I knew she was the one for me. There you go. Nice. Starfleet Battles and Battletech are just about filling out Scantron cards. Kinda, a little bit. They definitely have that feeling. I'm not gonna lie. I wonder if you could make silicon pop-out fidget cutouts for Battletech. I know what you're talking about. Those ones where it's kind of like the bubble wrap, except you can push it down and then pop it back up again. Those little fidgety kind of, yeah, potentially, yeah, why not? Did you get your Planet 28 reprint? Book is gorgeous, throwback feel. Yeah, it's not within arm's reach. It's over at my chair over there. But yeah, I did get it, yes. Second edition there. My wife did some spring cleaning and found a box of Mage Knight miniatures. First minis I ever owned. That was a cool game. Yeah, I got into Mage Knight kind of hard early on. That was a cool game. I learned a very important lesson. Because there was a chase figure that I was going for, which was a Storm Golem or Steam Golem. I want to say it was a Storm Golem. I don't know. It was in the earliest set, I think, of Mage Knight. And it was a really good figure, and it was like very powerful and all this stuff. And I just wasn't getting it, because it was a blind box where you open the box, kind of like, HeroClix, and you're like, oh, I didn't know what was in there. So finally I was like, all right, I'm going to buy one. And I bought it on eBay. And I think it was like $20. And again, this is some time ago. And I was like, all right, 20 bucks. So I bought it and, did the PayPal or whatever you got to do and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, all right. And then I, like, literally an hour later, I walked down to the comic shop, and which is where I generally bought all my hero clicks, and Mage Knight, and that's where we would generally play too. And I walked down there, and I was talking to the owner, who's a friend of mine. And then I bought another box, and there was a storm golem or whatever was in there, and I was like, yes, now I have 2 of them. Well, I will soon have 2 of them. So yeah, that taught me that you know. Sometimes you're gonna, as soon as you try to buy the thing that you've been trying to chase out of those boxes, you'll get it. And so yeah, I could say I've never done any more of those types of games ever since, but that's not true, because I also got into the Star Wars minis game that Wizards of the Coast did for a while. There were Star Wars pre-paints and stuff like that, and I got heavy into that game for a while too. We played that like weekly at the comic shop as well. This is, again, before we had any game shops here in town. Let's see here. Battle Systems cardboard terrain is assemblable / disassemblable. Disassemblable? I'm saying that wrong, I think. Time to play some games with the wife later, people? Absolutely, Terrier. Amarillo Design Bureau has a Shapeways store. I think the whole Starfleet Battles miniature line is available there. But that's kind of smart. That's cool. Those fidgety pop things would make good reusable tiny paint palettes. Yeah, I could see that too. Good point. The booster thing is truly evil, preying on addicts. Yeah. I'm not crazy about the fact that GW has been doing it. It's at least just usually 6 designs. Like, if they were like, oh, we've got 60 different new like figures and you can buy them all and you don't know what you're going to get, that would suck. I'm glad they don't do that. But they still do those new ones. Like, they just talked about the new ones that basically, if you get all of them, you can turn it into a kill team. Now, and I don't know if they're doing this with the new ones. The previous ones, I know specifically the ones that were just Death Guard, if you just bought the case, with not a case, but like it was like a little display thing that you put on there by the register at the game store, right? And there would have 6 of those things in that, right? If you just bought that entire thing, it had 1 of each in there. So you weren't going to be like, oh, there's 3 of the same one in here. That sucks. Like, they don't do that. If you just go in there and just take one out, you don't know which one you're going to get. But if you buy the whole box, you're going to get 1 of each. So hopefully they're going to keep doing that in this situation. And I think the benefit there is the idea that for people who are just like vaguely a little bit interested, they could buy one of these for relatively inexpensive, go home, put it together, go, hey, look at that. That's neat. But for people who are like, I want, especially not because they're making it basically a kill team, you're like, I want that kill team, you buy the whole thing. But I would think that would be more expensive than buying a full kill team. Like, wouldn't buying a full kill team cost about maybe $60 max, right? Especially Space Marines? I don't know. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see what the price is on those things, because I have no idea. Would asking for autographs at TMX be okay? Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Absolutely. Vince and I have signed a lot of copies of the games at this point already, which we're always happy to do. It's very nice. They confirmed you can buy a box and get the whole set plus 1 duplicate. Okay, that's cool. At least, because yeah, that would suck if you bought the whole box and there was 3 of the same one in there and then you missed 2 of them or something like that. That would suck. I've had to use supreme self-control to not go insane buying salvage boxes for Battletech. Yeah, I know that they're doing the same thing. I think that's weird. Buy a case, you get all one with 1 random extra. Interesting. Yeah, that is kind of a bummer. I don't know. I just saw my wife bicycle away with a bunch of plants in the basket of her bike, so she must be going to drop off some plants someplace. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Those kind of like blind boxes like that, I'm just, I mean, I know HeroClix is still out there, still doing its thing, so that's cool. But I don't know. It sometimes bothers me still, that kind of blind box thing. Will you have merch at TMX? Not shirts, but I will have stickers and dice and other things. What else do I have? Stickers, dice, some magnets, I think. But otherwise, yeah, I don't have any like the t-shirts or any of that kind of stuff. I'd be intimidated if I met Adam in person. He is a celebrity, and I'm just some dude. I don't know that's true. I'm not a celebrity. Plus he's tall. I am kind of tall. I'm a little tall. I'm like 6'2". Will you be trying Shatterpoint when it releases? I have just started collecting Legion now, and I'm not sure which game to go with. I got to play a demo of Shatterpoint at Adepticon, thanks to viewer Panny Mauser, who had gotten, she was able to, like, because you had to like go and sign up for a slot and everything like that, and so she had done that, and then you get to bring somebody with you, and so she was like, hey, do you want to come play this? And I was like, sure. And it was very nice of her. So we got to try it out, and I think I like the rule set a little bit better than Marvel, but it's still got lots and lots and lots of tokens and stuff like that. I'm not super keen on the scale personally, the physical size of the models, and also I'm not super into the Clone Wars stuff. So maybe once they release the more like, you know, Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker-y kind of era, I could see myself being a little bit more interested, but we'll see. It also depends on how it takes off, like around here too. But yeah, but I do like the rule set a bit better than Marvel Crisis Protocol. It feels more like you're trying to hurt each other as opposed to just trying to push each other around, which is kind of what Marvel feels like to me. Because, you know, superheroes aren't supposed to croak, right? Kind of. So, you know, it doesn't seem like you're trying to shoot each other. You're just trying to push each other off of objectives with psychic blasts or some junk like that or whatever. Whereas at least in this, you got guns and you're trying to shoot each other and whatever. And you know, what, so yeah. But again, tons of lots and lots and lots of tokens, which I get a little annoyed by. And, but it's, like I said, slightly better a rule system, in my opinion. Well, folks, it is 11 o'clock in the morning, 11:01 technically now, here in my neck of the woods. So I got to go. But thank you very much for helping to hang out and support the channel. I appreciate you folks coming by and hanging out. And the chatting is always fun. I enjoy that. So yeah, I hope you folks have a good rest of your day. Or evening, depends on where you live, or next day, I don't know. And we'll see you folks again soon. Like I said, I will be posting more information about TMX stuff the rest of this month, and we'll be heading towards that direction. New games coming soon. Like I said, been sent off to the printer. We're waiting for our proof copy to come back. What else is going on? Another video coming out on Friday, as they generally do. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks again, and I'll be on Twitch as well. So I hope, hopefully we'll see some of you on Monday night at Twitch. So have a good weekend and stay safe. And that's pretty much about it, I think. Thanks for watching.